Hi everyone, this is Carrie Szwed, the Education Director at White Memorial Conservation Center in Litchfield, Connecticut, and I'm back with another episode of Nature's News. This is where I like to document and show you some amazing aspects of nature that are going on all around us. And what a beautiful time of year it is. There's so much life, so much activity. So I'd like to show you a sampling of what I'm seeing in my backyard and also here at White Memorial. So let's go. I want to show you a flower that is blooming on one of the trees in my backyard. A small tree, only about maybe 20-25 feet tall, but right now it has these gorgeous flowers, and this tree is called a dogwood, a flowering dogwood. It is a native species of tree that grows all throughout the eastern U.S. They tend to be a little bit more common down south, but we are in the northern range, so they can grow wild here in Connecticut. Later on in the year, when this tree goes to seed, it will have bright red berries that the wildlife love to eat. And also in the fall, it turns the leaves turn a beautiful dark red color. So it's an amazing native tree to have in our area, the flowering dogwood. Finally, the leaves are growing on the trees. It seemed like it took forever. And then overnight, all of a sudden we have all this green in our area. So let's talk a little bit about leaves. Here's one of our most common leaves, common types of trees we have around here. This is a sugar maple leaf. A sugar maple leaf. Yes, this is the type of tree that we get our wonderful maple syrup from. But just a little hint on helping to identify the leaf. As you can see here, it has 5 lobes on it, so 5 main points, those 2 smaller points down towards the bottom, the base of the leaf, and then 1 big lobe here, 1 big lobe here, and 1 big lobe here. The nice thing about having 5 lobes, if you're a sugar maple, is that you have the same number of lobes as the letters in your name. So S-U-G-A-R. So here we have S-U-G-A-R. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lobes, as opposed to the red maple, which has 3 lobes, R-E-D. For red maple. So that's kind of a cool way to help remember what a sugar maple leaf looks like. Also, you'll notice, see how the leaf goes in, like it dips in? We call those sinuses. And the sinuses on a sugar maple look like U's, right? If I were to turn this the other way, which is hard to do, but right now we can see upside down U's, let's say that. And of course we have the letter U in sugar maple. Here's another leaf you should really be aware of. You see those leaves of 3? Let them be. Those are poison ivy leaves, and as they're emerging, they do have that red shiny color. It's not always going to be that way. Once those leaves are fully grown in, they will turn green and they won't necessarily be shiny, but right now, this is what they look like. The one thing you can be sure of is they're always going to be in that orientation, 1, 2, 3 leaflets, with the center leaflet having a longer stem than the leaflets on either side. So please do not touch these leaves of 3. Definitely leave them be. And notice, in this case, they are attached to a hairy vine, also poison ivy. And yes, these vines with all the fuzz on them, they can carry the same exact oils, that urushiol, that you can get from the leaves. So you don't want to touch the vine or the leaves of poison ivy. They can cause a very bad rash in many of us. So leaves of 3, leave them be. Hairy rope, don't be a dope. I just happened to find this on a telephone pole right here in my neighborhood. So you don't have to be out in the middle of the woods to come across poison ivy. Here I found some poison ivy leaves that are just growing right up from the ground. So they don't necessarily have to be on a vine that's attached to a tree trunk or a pole. Poison ivy can grow right from the ground. And here I found it right here in my slightly overgrown backyard. So it can be in places where you might frequently walk. So just be aware of what poison ivy looks like. Once again, those leaves of 3, we're going to leave them be. Now, of course, not every plant in nature that has 3 leaflets like this is going to be poison ivy. There are plenty of plants out there that have 3 leaflets on their one stem that are not poison ivy. But if you're not sure, your best bet is to not touch those leaves of 3, just in case it does end up being poison ivy. Sometimes the evidence that you find in nature gives you really good clues about what's around you. And this right here is a pellet from an owl pellet. It's basically what they cough up. So when they eat their food, which is usually mice or some other sort of small rodent, maybe sometimes frogs, toads, salamanders, but whatever they eat, they cannot digest the fur and the bones of the animals that they eat. So while they digest the rest of the stuff, they end up coughing up the fur and the bones in one compact pellet. And sometimes you'll find these just laying on the ground in the forest floor. And what's really cool about these is that they basically contain the skeletons of the animals that they have consumed. There we go. There's one bone that I just pulled out of that pellet. And keep going here. Oh yeah, we got all kinds of good bones. Here's another big bone. So anyways, by finding this owl pellet, we know that right around us there was an owl that had eaten something and coughed up this owl pellet. Right near where I found that owl pellet, I looked up in this big pine tree, and right here in the center of the screen is a baby barred owl. A little barred owl that is just looking down at me from way up high in the trees. Now, I know that it's an owlet, it's a baby owl, because it doesn't have its flight feathers in yet. That's why it kind of looks like a ball of fluff. It's mostly just down feathers at this point. And so it cannot fly yet. So what it's gonna do during this stage is basically hang out in the trees very silently, try to get a good day's rest, and wait for mom and dad to come back. And mom and dad will provide him with his food, he or she, with its food, until they can get to the point where they can fly and go find their own food. So he's just hanging out in the trees. Now, he was born most likely inside of a tree cavity, a large tree hole, somewhere in one of these large pines or hemlocks in this wooded area. So they're born inside cavities, but once they get to this point where they're almost ready to fledge, they come out onto the branches of the trees. Here's another baby bird for you. Right in the center of my screen, in the crook of this tree, is a large nest of red-shouldered hawks. And right in the middle of the nest, if you see a little bit of kind of a cream white color, little circle, little blob there, that is the head of a red-shouldered hawk chick. And he's looking right back at me right now. So here we have another species of raptor whose babies are not quite able to fly yet. So they don't have their flight feathers, and they are still fully dependent on mom and dad. Oh, the young one's moving a little bit. He just popped his head up a little bit further. Oh, looks like he was just readjusting. Now he's sitting back down in the nest. But anyways, he's probably waiting for mom and dad to come back with some food, fully dependent on mom and dad until he ends up getting those flight feathers and can fly on his own and eventually hunt on his own as well. You might not know that we have a beautiful bright red bird that lives in this area and breeds here that is not a cardinal. Now, cardinals are beautiful in their own right, but here's one that's a little bit lesser known. This is a bird called a Scarlet Tanager. And look how beautiful and bright red its plumage is on its head and its back, but it does have dark black wings and a dark black tail as well. So that makes it a little bit different from a cardinal. Also, you'll notice there is no crest on the top of the head of a tanager. And tanagers spend a good part of their time in fairly wooded areas, not so much out in the open. So that's why a lot of people don't even realize that we have scarlet tanagers that do breed here. But they are gorgeous, gorgeous birds. This is just what the males look like. The females are more of a yellowish, brownish, greenish color, once again to blend in a little bit more with their surroundings, whereas the male has the bright coloration to attract the females and help with establishing their territory, their space. I'd like to introduce you all to Dottie, our beautiful spotted turtle. That is one of our education ambassadors here at White Memorial. We use her for school field trips and outreaches. And I'm going to use her to educate you on how to help turtles cross the road. This is the time of year when you're going to see a lot of turtles, whether they're painted turtles or snapping turtles, or maybe some more rare species like spotted turtles or wood turtles, box turtles. You might just see turtles crossing the road. It's warmer now, they're more active. Sometimes they're just going from one part of their home range to another. But in a lot of cases, it is the females that are coming up on land to lay their eggs. They do not lay their eggs in water, they have to lay them on land. So the female needs to find a nice spot with sandy soil or soil that she can easily dig a hole into to deposit her eggs. And a lot of times in search of that perfect place to nest, they will have to cross roads to get there. Okay, so let's pretend that this sidewalk that I'm on is a road. And here I have found this lovely turtle in the middle of the road. Perhaps it's on its way across, or maybe it's just hanging out there because it loves the warmth of the pavement or the concrete. Either way, this turtle is in a dangerous area because of cars, and so it needs to be helped across. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. When it comes to most turtles, we'll talk about snappers in just a little bit, but when it comes to most turtles, all you need to do is take 2 hands and put each of your hands on either side of the shell and get a really nice grip on that turtle so that you make sure you don't drop it. When turtles get nervous, like when they get picked up, they tend to go to the bathroom. They tend to pee. So you want to hold the turtle a little bit further away from your body so your shoes don't get peed on, okay? You are going to take that turtle in the direction that its head was already facing. So in this case, we're going to put Dottie right off, about 5 or 10 feet off of the road, down in a safer spot. For a snapping turtle, the rules are a little bit different. First and foremost, maybe handling a snapping turtle is best left to an adult, just because they do have the capability of biting pretty hard. All turtles can bite, but snapping turtles can bite fairly hard. Plus we know that they actually have fairly long necks, and they've got a lot of mobility with their necks. So we really want to be careful to keep our hands away from anything near the top half of that snapping turtle. So all of our handling is going to be done from the center back, all right? If you don't feel comfortable handling the snapping turtle, you're just going to take a stick or maybe something you have in your car that gives you a fair amount of distance from the turtle, and you're just going to use that to push the turtle across the road in the direction it's already facing. If you do feel comfortable handling the turtle, again, make sure your hands stay at least halfway back. In fact, the best way to do it is to put your hands under the back of the shell, just like this. You don't want to pick up the turtle by the tail, because that tail is attached to their backbone. It's part of their vertebrae, so you could injure the snapping turtle if you handle it by the tail. So we're not going to do that, but you can pick them up by the back of the shell, right above their legs, one hand on either side, or you can have one hand on the side while the other hand is put below the shell to kind of give that turtle some support as you're helping it across. Again, don't put that hand too far up, okay? We don't want to get it anywhere near the head. We're going to keep our hand pretty far back, but we're just going to give them a little extra lift, or like I said, you can just put both hands on the back. So that's how you help a snapping turtle across the road. Adults only on that one. As nightfall sets in, you are watching big brown bats fly out from the barn here at White Memorial to go on their nightly hunting mission. So we have a maternity colony of big brown bats that live in our barn. Sometimes there are up to 300 of them. And maternity colony means that they are moms that will be having pups. And it's so exciting for us that we have a big population of bats on our property. As you may know, many bat species have faced substantial declines because of white nose syndrome, but big brown bats, fortunately, are not an endangered species in our state yet. Did you know that just one bat can catch hundreds, even up to 1,000 flying insects per night? Pretty helpful to have around. Now, these bats are only here from May through October. During the other months, they are in hibernation, usually in some sort of underground cave in the region. where the temperature is a little bit more constant for them. So we get to enjoy them just during the warmer months, so it's exciting to see them flying around over our heads, catching all those bugs. We are certainly in the height of baby season for a lot of mammal species. And here's a baby mammal that you've maybe never seen before. This is a short-tailed shrew that spends most of its life underground, which is why we don't encounter shrews very often. They're under there in tunnels looking for things to eat, like earthworms and snails, slugs, lots of different insects, sometimes even other vertebrates. And they consume up to 3 times their body weight in one day. So they are voracious eaters. Now this one is a baby, doesn't quite have its eyes open yet. Although even when its eyes do open, their sense of sight is really not good. They can detect differences in light, but other than that, they can't really see any details with their eyes. They mostly use echolocation and their sense of touch to help them find their food. So this baby's eyes are going to open fairly soon, but in the meantime, it was accidentally separated from its mother, and so it will need to be raised by a licensed wildlife rehabilitator before it is released back out into the wild again. What a treat. Oh, and it even made a little noise just now. For this edition's nature activity, we are going to do a scavenger hunt, but not your average scavenger hunt. This is called a personalized scavenger hunt. So what that means is we've all done scavenger hunts before, but have you ever created a scavenger hunt for someone else, their own personal scavenger hunt? So what you can do at home is you can pick a family member that you want to go on a hike with, and each of you can write a scavenger hunt for each other, exchange those scavenger hunts, and go on a hike and see what you can find. So let's take a look at this personalized scavenger hunt that I made as an example. Okay, so here it is, written in my own handwriting, as you can see. And let's say I made this for a friend of mine. So the first thing I said, I made it pretty easy right off the bat. I said, see if you can find an acorn. Then we get a little tougher. All right, now see if you can find a feather. Now the next one, maybe I happen to know that my friend's favorite color is red. So I add an entry on there that says find something red. And then just to make it really personal at the end, I say find an object that starts with the same letter as your name out in nature. So you can put anything you want on the scavenger hunt. It doesn't have to be these items. This is just what I chose for my friend to do her scavenger hunt. But choose some things that you think would be commonly found in nature, but are maybe kind of fun and specific for the person that you're making the hunt for. Just remember, you don't have to collect everything that you find on a scavenger hunt. In fact, sometimes it's better just to leave things where they are. All you have to do is just put a check mark on your hunt when you have found something. So have fun creating and going on your own personalized scavenger hunt. And just by the way, I got this activity from a deck of cards called 52 Nature Activities by Lynn Gordon. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Nature's News. When you get a chance, jump on whitememorialcc.org and check out all that White Memorial has to offer. We have 40 miles of trails, and they're just so beautiful this time of year. If you're able to make any sort of donation or become a member of White Memorial, we would appreciate it so very much. I hope you enjoy the spring. Get out there and see all that nature has to offer for you.